I have had 5 jobs in my life, not 5 careers, 5 jobs. Some paid well, some barely paid at all. One lasted 32 years. One lasted 8 months before the company closed and I found myself starting again at 41. I swept floors. I managed teams. I submitted reports that no one read and ran projects that mattered enormously and retired from a role I had done well and that the organization continued perfectly well without me. I am 90 years old, and the most important thing I know about work has nothing to do with any of those jobs. It has to do with how I did them. Because your job does not define you. The job is circumstance, the specific opportunity or necessity that placed you in that role at that specific point in your life. Jobs change. Jobs end. The economy shifts. The company closes. The career path turns in directions you did not plan. The job title on your business card today may be entirely different from the one you will carry in 5 years, and none of that title has anything to do with the kind of person you are becoming. What defines you is your work ethic, the standards you bring to the work, regardless of whether the work is impressive or humble, the care you put into the thing in front of you, whether or not anyone is watching, the consistency of your character across every task you have ever done, from the most trivial to the most consequential, because how a person does anything is how they do everything. I want to say that clearly, not as a motivational slogan, but as a precise observation about how human character actually works. The way you approach the unimportant task is not separate from the way you approach the important one. The standards you apply when no one is watching are not different from the standards you apply when everyone is. The care you give to the work that seems beneath you is exactly the care that will determine whether you rise to the work that does not. Character is not situational. You do not have a work ethic for the high-stakes tasks and a different standard for the rest. You have one work ethic. It shows up everywhere, and the people who know you can read it reliably in the smallest things you do. Let me tell you about Marcus and Diana. Marcus came into my team when he was 28. He was, by every conventional measure, talented. His qualifications were good, his technical skills were strong, and he was clearly intelligent in ways that were immediately apparent in his more interesting work. In the high-profile projects, the ones that attracted attention and carried visible consequence, Marcus was excellent. Focused, careful, genuinely impressive, that Marcus had a work ethic that was conditional. The ordinary work, the routine reports, the follow-up tasks, the administrative obligations that make any serious role function, Marcus did poorly, not because he was incapable, because he did not believe these tasks warranted his best effort. He had divided his work into the worthy and the unworthy, and he brought 2 entirely different standards to each. What he had not understood was that everyone around him could see it, not just the work itself, but the character it revealed. The willingness to leave the unworthy task half done while investing fully in the visible one was visible not only in the tasks, but in Marcus, and who Marcus was when no one was keeping score. And who Marcus was when no one was keeping score was the most reliable information available about who Marcus actually was. He was, in my experience of him across 4 years, a genuinely talented person who never became what his talent should have made possible. Because his standards were conditional, and conditional standards build conditional character. And conditional character cannot be fully trusted with the work that matters most, because the people who matter most already know how he does the work that matters least. Diana arrived in the same team 6 months later. She had no particular advantage over Marcus in terms of formal qualifications. Her technical skills were good, but not exceptional. In the early months, she was not the most impressive person in the room in any obvious way. But Diana's work ethic was unconditional. The report nobody would read was prepared with the same attention as the presentation the senior directors would scrutinize. The follow-up email that was technically required but practically irrelevant was sent correctly, on time, every time. The smallest task was done completely, not because Diana was unaware that some tasks mattered more than others, but because Diana's standards were not determined by the importance of the task. They were her standards, applied to everything because they were hers. 4 years after she arrived, Diana was running things that Marcus was still being carefully watched for readiness on. Not because Diana had been lucky or well-connected. Because the people who needed to trust someone with important work had been watching how she handled unimportant work for 4 years. And the answer was, exactly the same way. That is how character works. That is how work ethic works. It is not a special capacity you deploy for the significant tasks. It is a consistent relationship with quality that you bring to everything, and the evidence of it, or the absence of it, accumulates quietly and irresistibly across every small thing you do. 3 things, from 90 years of living and 60 years of working and watching what work reveals about people. First, the standards you set when no one is watching are your actual standards, not the standards you perform when the stakes are visible. The standards you apply to the work that no one will notice you doing or not doing correctly. The task that could be done at 70% and submitted without comment. The deadline that is technically tomorrow, but whose real consequence is next week. The small error that would take 3 minutes to fix, and that no one would catch if you did not fix it. What you do with those moments is your actual work ethic, not what you intend, not what you are capable of, what you actually do. I watched Marcus and Diana over 4 years, and the reliable indicator in every case of who would do the important work well was who was doing the unimportant work well. The correlation was exact, not because there is anything special about routine tasks, but because the habit of doing things properly does not switch on for the significant and switch off for the rest. It is either a habit or it is not, and if it is not a habit, it is a performance. And performances end when the audience leaves. Set your standards privately. Then apply them publicly. In that order, because the reverse produces Marcus. Second, every task is practice. This is the way to think about the unimportant work that allows you to do it well without finding it demeaning. Every task you undertake is practice for the quality of attention you will bring to the next task, and the one after that. The habit of care, applied consistently to small things, is what builds the habit of care that will be available when large things demand it. You cannot separate the attention you practice daily from the attention you bring to the high-stakes moment. If you have been practicing half-attention, distracted engagement, the good enough standard applied to everything because nothing in particular seems to require better, you will bring that practice to the moment that matters, not because you want to, because it is what you have built. Diana had been building, in every small task across 4 years, the specific quality of attention that made the large task possible. She was not saving it. She was practicing it every day, on everything, and when the large task arrived, the practice was already there. Treat every task as practice, not because the task is worthy of your best, because you are. Third, the occupation changes, the character stays. You will have different jobs. Most people in a working life will have several. Some will feel like the right expression of who you are. Some will feel like a mismatch, a compromise, a temporary necessity. Some will disappoint you. Some will end before you chose. The occupation is variable. It is contingent on circumstances that are not entirely yours to control. The character is not contingent. The character is yours to build and yours to keep, regardless of what the occupation is. in the character you build in every role, including the ones that feel beneath you, is the character you will bring to the roles that do not. The person who does the humble work poorly because it does not reflect who they are does not know who they are. Who they are is exactly the person doing the humble work, and if that person cannot bring their full standard to work that seems unworthy, then the standard was always conditional. And conditional standards are not character, they are ambition wearing character's clothes. Know who you are through how you work in every role, on every task, without waiting for the work to be worthy of you. You are the one who determines the worthiness of the work by what you bring to it. I am 90 years old. I swept floors. I ran departments. I wrote reports that no one read. I managed people who were better at specific things than I was and learned from them while I learned. Across 60 years and 5 jobs, the thing that I most value about my working life is not any of the titles or the accomplishments. It is the consistency. The fact that, to the best of my knowledge and my imperfect best effort, I brought the same standard to the smallest task that I brought to the largest. Not because I always got it right. I did not. Not because I was always the most talented person in the room. I was not. But because I understood early enough and clearly enough that the work reveals the person. And the person I wanted to reveal was not the person who saved his best for the important moments. It was the person who brought his best to every moment, because every moment is the one you are actually in. Your job does not define you. The standards you bring to it do. Bring them to all of it on every ordinary day.